Everyone in the world knows I am merely a stand-in for the woman the crown prince of North Liang truly loves. To make him smile, I would wear her favorite dance costume and dance until my feet blistered and bled. To keep him from harm, I would take a blade meant for him, letting it pierce straight through my flesh. The crown prince once said of me, "Even in bed, she has a touch of liveliness, not bad for a substitute." The courtiers sneered behind my back. She's really shameless, doing all this just to climb her way up to the title of crown princess. I remained silent, as I always had. Because the crown prince, he too is just a stand-in. When Michael Smith arrived, I had just finished bathing. The palace maids quietly took their leave, understanding their place. I stepped forward obediently to help him remove his robes. There was a familiar scent of wine on him, the very same spring tribute our South Tang had recently offered. I too was a tribute sent here 3 years ago. Back then, 5,000 tribute women from South Tang were delivered to the military camp of North Liang, meant for the soldiers' pleasure. I had planned to take my own life before disgrace could touch me, but Michael Smith chose me. He wore a suit of iron armor, a braid tied beside his temple, his horse tail high and proud. He was stunning. Though as young as I was, the bloodlust around him was heavier than anyone else's. He lifted my chin with his horsewhip, the rough leather scraping my skin raw. "Mine," he said. Just one word, and the soldiers fighting over me backed away in silence, like wolves tamed by a stronger beast. Back then, I didn't know he was a young prince of North Liang. I didn't know he had chosen me because I resembled the woman he truly loved. But something in me told me he might be the one to pull me from this abyss. That night in his tent, I clumsily tried to please him. He covered my eyes and told me to call him Mike. The wine he drank tonight, spring, carried too many of my memories. Unconsciously, I leaned closer to him. He didn't speak much, just held me, then took me to the bed. Earlier that day, I had heard the palace maids whispering, the woman he loved, far away at the border, had just given birth twins, a boy and a girl. So I knew he would come to me tonight. He always came when news of her arrived. He would take me as if I were her again and again with longing and desperation. The next morning when he sobered up, he left behind a bowl of contraceptive soup and an order forbidding me to leave my quarters. The other tribute girls, seeing the bruises blooming across my skin, would look at me with pity. "Luna, you've suffered enough," they'd say. They pitied how I was treated. They pitied me more for being her substitute. But I told them I didn't suffer. They never believed me. Men from North Liang were tall, strong, and far less gentle than the men of South Tang. The girls could barely endure them. But I was telling the truth. I didn't suffer. Because I saw Michael Smith as a substitute too. He looked so much like the man I once loved. Even his name spoken aloud was the same. When I was with him, I could pretend I was with my Mike. But my Mike, he was already dead. I had a dream of the last days I saw Mike. He had returned victorious from the border, a young general astride a tall war horse, bright and arrogant with pride. The women cheered, the men raised their drinks. I stood among the crowd, watching him. We were from noble houses, childhood sweethearts, already betrothed by our parents. He spotted me and smiled, his joy lighting up the square. That night, he climbed over my garden wall to see me, bringing with him a Vol Fang from North Liang.
He held me and whispered, "Sophie, once I reclaim Yan City with my father and brothers, we'll be wed."
He told me he'd seen a boy at the border, a youth from North Liang who looked just like him, fierce as a wolf. He had torn the fang from that boy's body during battle and hung it around my neck. That night, we drank spring wine together.
He spoke of the cold winds of the northern frontier.
I spoke of the lush rivers of the southern lands. The wine smelled like falling spring blossoms, soft and warm. At last he kissed me. Just a brush of lips, light as dragonfly wings, yet our hearts raced. But after that night he was branded a traitor and strung up on the city wall of South Tang. To this day, I don't know if anyone ever buried him properly. I awoke with my face damp from tears. Michael Smith was still beside me. It seemed he'd been badly wounded this time. Usually he would rise early for court. This time, he lingered. I reached out and traced his brow, his lashes. Asleep, he looked even more like Mike, peaceful, almost boyish. There was a faint scar on his chin. Mike never had one. Mike was too skilled. No one could lay a hand on him. Michael Smith's lashes fluttered, but he didn't wake. His brows remained furrowed, as if caught in a heavy dream. "Your Highness, it's time to wake," I whispered. With the Emperor gravely ill, much of North Liang's affairs now rested on Michael Smith's shoulders. I didn't dare keep him long. The court ministers already distrusted me, a tribute woman from South Tang convinced I harbored ill intent, waiting to strike. I couldn't give them a reason to act. I couldn't die. Not yet. Michael Smith slowly opened his eyes. When he looked at me, the warmth in his gaze faded, replaced by a cold edge. I wasn't the woman he loved. I was just a lowly tribute girl from South Tang. At least he didn't lash out. In the early days, he would have thrown me off the bed without hesitation. As I helped him dress, the palace maids brought the usual contraceptive soup. But this time, he poured it into the flower pot. I was stunned. Perhaps he wanted me to bear him a child, so it would feel like she had given him one. I wasn't sure. I never had been. In 3 years, I'd never truly understood his thoughts. But over the next half-month, he came to me every night, or summoned me to his quarters. And not once did he allow me to drink the herbal brew. That confirmed it. But before I could conceive, she came back. Her name was Linda Green. She had just been recalled from exile. Her husband had died, Michael Smith's older brother, the former crown prince of North Liang, who had been stripped of his title and exiled after angering the emperor. Had fate not turned so cruel, she would have become crown princess and one day empress. But destiny was fickle. She had nothing now. With my status, I would never have seen her. But the empress summoned me. She ordered me to wear a red dancing dress, the very one Linda Green used to favor. So there we were, me in red, her in white, standing side by side at the palace banquet. It was the first time I laid eyes on her. We did share a slight resemblance, but it was easy to tell us apart. She was from North Liang, taller. I, from South Tang, had softer features. When Michael Smith saw me dressed like that, his eyes turned to blades, each one stabbing into me. Palace attendant Gray danced to leaven things up, came the Empress's decree. Though I was a mere attendant, I was still part of the harem. To dance before foreign officials was nothing short of humiliation. The Empress was Michael Smith's birth mother. She had once been a low-ranking attendant herself. Years ago, she had begged the Green family to let Linda Green marry Michael Smith. But they turned around and gave her to the former crown prince instead. Her intentions now were clear. By disgracing me, she was shaming Linda Green. After all, we looked alike. Linda Green's face went pale. Her body swayed like a leaf in the wind. The Empress pressed me to dance. I had just begun to raise my sleeves when— "Stand down," Michael Smith barked coldly. The ministers already loathed me. Seeing him speak to me so harshly only deepened their scornful amusement. And in that very moment, Linda Green collapsed to the ground. Michael Smith rushed forward without hesitation and swept her up into his arms, striding away without a word. I was placed under house arrest. For half a month he never came to see me. The palace servants treated me with open disdain, serving me spoiled food, whispering insults with every step. This place was no different from South Tang, always bowing to the powerful, trampling the weak. 2 other tribute girls from South Tang came to visit me in secret. They told me Linda Green had been living in Michael Smith's residence ever since she fainted. Rumor had it he intended to make her crown princess. North Liang really has no shame. In South Tang, if a man married his sister-in-law, people would laugh him out of the city. What will you do, Luna? If Linda Green becomes crown princess, she never let you live. That's right, 2 tigers can't share one mountain. I smiled. A tiger? What was I? Just a stand-in discarded whenever convenient. But I couldn't afford to be cast aside. Tribute girls discarded by North Liang's nobles all shared one fate. They were sent to the military camps. To become army whores. I never wanted to go back to that place. One girl I knew died there, her intestines ruptured. I saw her corpse. Pale limbs broken like willow branches, barely held together by skin. That night, I climbed over the wall to reach Michael Smith's residence. Mike had taught me this trick. I had learned Linda Green had just returned to the Green family after several days under his care. With a loud thud, I fell from the wall. Guards surrounded me instantly. Michael Smith appeared, frowning deeply. "Why are you climbing walls?" I clutched my bruised leg and whispered, I missed you, Your Highness." It wasn't a lie. I missed him desperately, painfully. I couldn't hold back. I hugged him tightly from the front and murmured, "Mike." As expected, Michael Smith pushed me away and turned to leave. "Take her back." I wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. "Please don't send me away, Your Highness." His body stiffened just for a moment. He still pushed me off, but not as harshly as before. After all, for 3 years I'd loved him like this, so that in moments of danger, he might feel the slightest hint of mercy. He looked at me, noticed I was barefoot. Though he still ordered them to take me away, he gave me a pair of shoes. I'd won my gamble. Just like Mother always said, a persistent woman can even melt a stone. She herself had relentlessly chased down my cold-as-ice father, the most stone-faced man in South Tango, till he married her and fathered 5 children. The next day, rumors swept through the palace like wildfire that I had climbed the palace walls in the dead of night to see Michael Smith, wearing nothing but a thin robe, bare feet on the cold stone floor, fluttering like petals before him. Inside the palace, they called me a seductive fox. Outside the court, they called me shameless. But tell me, what is shame, if not just something the living can afford? Can shame keep me alive? Linda Green arrived while I was painting Mike's portrait. Oddly enough, these days when I tried to recall his face, it no longer came to mind so easily. As if I were slowly forgetting him. I still wore the shoes Michael Smith had given me the night before. They didn't fit, but I hadn't taken them off. Because of those shoes, the palace servants had served me fresh, hot food. I even had milk to drink. Linda Green stood by the table. Today she wore a soft pink dress, delicate and charming. I greeted her with a bow. She studied me closely. "You really do look like me. But I'm back now. If you stay, you'll die." So typical of North Liang women, straightforward to the point of cruelty. I said nothing. She picked up the half-finished portrait on my table. "I hear even tribute girls like you come from noble families. I can send you back to South Tang to be with your parents." I shook my head, then raised my voice. "I belong to the Crown Prince. I love His Highness. I will not leave." Just as the words left my lips, one of Michael Smith's attendants entered.
He said the envoy from South Tong would depart tomorrow.
Tonight there would be a banquet to see them off, and I was to perform. I agreed joyfully, then turned to Linda Green with a smile. "You see, Your Grace?"
His Highness is always thinking of me.
She gave me a cold look, then swept out without a word. Yes, I would leave one day. But not because she allowed it. That night, I performed behind a veil at the farewell banquet for the South Tong envoys. The ministers of North Liang each held a tribute girl in their laps, feeding them grapes, sipping wine from their hands. The South Tong envoys laughed merrily, their homesickness already forgotten. After my dance, Michael Smith summoned me. He made me kneel beside his dog, crouched low at his feet. He would pet the dog, then ruffle my hair. "Crown Prince, you've raised this wolf dog well," one South Tong envoy slurred drunkenly. Michael Smith chuckled. "And your South Tong beauties aren't bad either. Truly, fertile lands raise fine people." The envoys, pleased with the compliment, drank more happily than ever. I remained still at his feet, motionless. "Your Highness," one envoy said, "you bear such a striking resemblance to a young general from our South Tong. If he weren't already dead, I'd think you were him." Michael Smith's hand paused in my hair. "Oh? Which general?" "Mike Anderson. The youngest son of John Anderson." Michael Smith nodded. "Ah, that one. If I recall, your emperor executed the Anderson family for treason, yes?" "Yes, no," the envoy faltered. Michael Smith pulled me into his lap. I understood his cue and offered him a cup of wine. I tried to keep my hands steady. Still, a few drops spilled. He glanced at me, said nothing. After drinking, he motioned the envoys closer. Gentlemen, allow me to share a secret. What secret? They asked, curious. A lazy smirk lifted his lips. The Anderson family never colluded with North Liang. That was a rumor I started myself, just to test you. Who would have thought your emperor actually believed it? The room fell silent. Then the envoys forced laughter. Your Highness jests? Of course they were traitors. I mean, they were morally corrupt. You needn't defend them. Their flustered excuses filled the hall. Michael Smith looked at them with a sneer. I'm not joking, he said. Your emperor would rather send 1,000,000 taels of silver and these delicate, flower-like maidens than believe in a loyal, devoted general. The ministers of North Liang laughed wantonly. Some even began tearing the garments off the tribute girls in front of everyone. Michael Smith continued, next time, North Liang wants 2,000,000 silver taels, 300,000 bolts of silk, and 10,000 young girls. How can we possibly provide that much? Could your Highness be a bit more lenient? The envoys turned pale. Even one short, Michael Smith said coldly, and I'll flatten your South Tang to the ground. The envoys forced themselves to smile, none daring to object. One of them kept staring at me. I recognized him. His name was Daniel Lee, once a student of my father, also one of the officials who had overseen the execution of my Lewis family. Even with the veil over my face, I feared he'd recognize me. So I feigned shyness and buried my face against Michael Smith's chest. Michael Smith noticed and asked Daniel coldly, "What are you looking at?" Daniel replied with a laugh, "Your Highness's fondness for her must be a blessing she earned in a previous life." Michael Smith's hand rested ambiguous. "In bed," he said. "She's quite lively. Hopefully, the next tribute girls will be just as sensible." Daniel laughed and backed away. I had dodged a bullet. Then Michael Smith carried me behind the screen at the back of the hall, just a sheer curtain separating us from the envoys. I knew what he was about to do. He wanted to humiliate me in front of the South Tang delegation, just as North Liang was humiliating South Tang. Instinctively, I grabbed at the beaded curtain. I didn't want him to treat me like this. The ministers of North Liang were laughing. The envoys of South Tang bowed and flattered. The tribute girls cooed and fawned like tame birds. Soft moans filled the northern palace like a sickly lullaby. No one came to save me. Behind the beaded curtain, blurred and swaying, Michael Smith moved with intensity.
His face, distorted in motion, reminded me of Mike.
When he hung from the city wall, the bitter northern wind had blown his lifeless body back and forth like this. People cursed at him, hurled rotting vegetables and filth, wishing they could tear him apart piece by piece. His once proud head drooped low. His blood had long since dried. I stood in the crowd, watching as the 17-year-old boy I loved slowly decayed under the cold moonlight. Michael Smith said it was all a rumor he had spread. But 4 years ago, the South Tang court had produced countless letters, evidence. They claimed, proving the Anderson family had colluded with North Liang. The Andersons swore on their blood they had never betrayed South Tang. Because my grandfather and father questioned the verdict, they too were branded traitors and executed, their entire clan put to death. Even my eldest sister, once the empress, was gifted a white silk sash and told to end her life. I had thought we were victims of a cunning plot. But now I understood. The true murderer was none other than the Emperor of South Tang. The same emperor our Lewis family had poured its loyalty into, whom the Anderson family had died defending. After that, the court raised taxes to fund the tribute, and the people of South Tang sank into unbearable suffering. North Liang demanded 5,000 girls, and 5,000 South Tang families were torn apart. As for me, I had been drugged and sold to a family by a matchmaker, forced to take the place of their daughter Luna, and sent off as a tribute girl. We 5,000 fragile girls were handed over by South Tang. Back then, the court claimed we were biding our time, sharpening our blades, for the day we would reclaim our lost land. But over the past 3 years, those 5,000 girls had become the soft shield that kept the men of North Liang satisfied and complacent. How many of us had died here in silence? How many never found hope? Never. There was never hope. I turned to look at the full moon outside the window. It was the same cold moon that shone down on the day the Lewis family was purged. I had lingered outside too long playing and returned home late, escaping death by accident. Even though I hid in the shadows, my mother saw me. She shook her head at me, silently pleading for me not to come out. I ran to find Mike. I thought he could save my parents. But when I reached the general's estate, it was already a river of blood. The last time I saw my sister, her corpse was pale under the moonlight. The brutes taking her to the mass grave had violated her. She was the empress, they said. But now that we've had her, it's like we ruled the empire ourselves. So this was the fate of the daughters of the Lewis family. I want to go home. Avenge my family. Then join them. What are you looking at? Michael Smith grabbed my chin, forcing me to face him. He was strange. In the past, he would always cover my eyes when he had me. Lately, he insisted I look at him. His beloved was already back. There was no reason to keep me. But still I remained by his side. Perhaps, as he once said, I brought some entertainment to the bed, something Linda Green couldn't provide. I raised a hand to cover the scar on his chin and replied, I'm looking at the moon. One last time. The next day, Linda Green came again. The palace maids fell over themselves to please her. Your Grace, you wouldn't believe it. Last night, palace attendant Louis was crawling at His Highness's feet side by side with his dog. His Highness even said she was raised well in Southtown. Knows how to serve. Like calling Southtown a kingdom of prostitutes. The envoys laughed too. Just filthy, all of them. They spoke loudly, deliberately, so I could hear. Linda Green stood in the courtyard, watching me. I was swinging high on a swing so high I felt I might fly over the palace walls. She would soon be the crown princess. In Southtown, marrying your sister-in-law would be scandalous. But in North Liang, where the people were rough and wild, even a son could inherit his dead father's concubine. I'll ask you one last time, Linda said coldly. Are you leaving, or do you want to die here? There was deep disgust in her eyes. But wasn't it her who had once rejected Michael Smith? If it were me, I'd blame myself for betting on the wrong man, not lash out at others. Is there no third option? I asked. There is, she said. Go to the military camps. With your skills, maybe you'll last longer than most. I couldn't. He might recognize me there. I wouldn't survive it. But Linda Green never got the chance to send me to the camps. Because before she could, I escaped. The day after the Southtown envoys departed, the Emperor of North Liang grew gravely ill. My chance had finally come. I took the jade pass I had stolen from Michael Smith along with the money I had secretly saved over the past 3 years and slipped away from the palace. But I didn't follow the Southtown envoy. Instead, I turned toward the kingdom of Shanlu, which bordered North Liang. From there, I would take the sea route back to Southtown. For 3 years, I had been planning my escape. The tribute was delivered every 3 years. I had intended to hide among the next group and return home that way. But the moment I saw Daniel Lee again, I changed my plan entirely. I would go to Shanlu, the land Mike had once told me about. And from there, I would find my way back to Southtown. Mike once told me that Shanlu bordered the sea, and from there ships reached all corners of the land. It was just over 10 days by boat from Shanlu to Tianhang, capital of Southtown. It might well be a road to death. But I had no other choice. When I left, Michael Smith and all the nobles of North Liang were attending the dying emperor. The palace was on edge. No one noticed me. I disguised myself in a maid's uniform, changed my makeup, and used the jade token I'd stolen from Michael Smith to walk straight toward the palace gates. Down the path I had paced for 3 years, I walked calmly. The guards stopped me, carefully inspecting the jade token. Then let me pass. I exhaled a long breath and quickly made my way beyond the city walls. I knew that at this time of year, ginseng hunters would head toward the forest near Shanlu. I could blend in and travel with them. Soon after I left the city, the morning bells tolled. The emperor of North Liang had died. I turned back. Above the palace, dark clouds surged like the storms brewing within the court. Even the heavens aided me today. Even if they wanted to capture a mere tribute girl like me now, they had no time to spare. And someone as lowly as I, an ant beneath their boots, was not worth the trouble. I followed the ginseng gatherers on the road to Shanlu. Rainstorms, wild beasts, bandits, I met danger many times. But I survived. I believed it was father, mother, sister, and Mike watching over me, guiding me home. A month passed in hardship. At last I reached Shanlu's coastal port and boarded a ship bound for Jinling. It was my first time on such a vessel. Though I'd never been seasick, I vomited uncontrollably. I told myself it must be the motion of the waves. Half a month later, I finally set foot on the land of South Tong again. At the lively port, I clung to a tree, retching until the sky spun. A kind woman offered me some green plums to smell. She said they'd ease the nausea. I don't know why, but I ended up eating one. It was terribly sour, but somehow it helped. My body was at its limit. I had to rest. I found a small inn in Tianhang and stayed the night. While I ate, the inn's patrons gossiped about North Liang. They said the emperor had died and the crown prince Michael Smith had taken the throne, covered in blood. That Linda Green had been crowned empress. I listened quietly. For 3 years I had been his Linda Green, and he had been my Mike. We took from each other what we needed. Now, everything had returned to its rightful place. We would never meet again. I was about to return to my room when I overheard another conversation. Did you hear? After ascending the throne, the new emperor of North Liang executed the envoy we sent with the tribute. What? But the envoy had already left days ago. They chased him down. 2 countries don't kill each other's messengers, especially when war hasn't even been declared. What is North Liang thinking? Who knows? They've always been wolves in human skin. Yes, Michael Smith had always been a wolf. When he demanded 2 million silver taels, I knew then he would come south. South Tang could never produce that amount. It was only ever an excuse. I just didn't expect him to act so quickly. I had to reach Jinling fast, or my enemies would die at his hands before I could reach them. 3 days later, I arrived in Jinling. The towering city walls no longer held the swaying corpse of Mike. I didn't even know where his remains were now. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I was home again. The long street outside the Lewis residence was overgrown with weeds, the house in ruins, filth piled by the gates. As night fell, I went to the other end of the street, to the old Anderson estate, once the might of the nation. It had long since burned to ashes. I stood there in the wind, unmoving, as distant laughter of courtesans floated in from afar. They probably didn't know that North Liang's army had already begun crossing the river. A passerby paused beside me, staring at the charred ruins. If the Anderson family were still here, he sighed, how could North Liang have taken Dingzhou so easily? I froze. Dingzhou, one of South Tang's key defenses. If it fell, nothing could stop North Liang from marching straight into the capital. Come to think of it, another said, maybe General Anderson really didn't betray us after all. Too late for regret, the first man replied. Within a month, North Liang will be at our gates. They say the new emperor is cruel and bloodthirsty. He slaughtered Dingzhou for 3 days straight. If Jinling can't hold, we'll face the same fate. We should flee while we still can. It was Michael Smith. He had taken Dingzhou. He had butchered the city. My stomach lurched again. I bent over, vomiting dryly. Nothing came out. I knew then my body was ill. Or maybe I was pregnant. I hadn't had my cycle in weeks. But I didn't see a physician. I was already a dead woman. What did it matter? I found out where the bodies of the Andersons and Lewis family had been dumped. They were thrown into a mass grave, now bones and dirt, indistinguishable from one another. I bought paper offerings and went to the burial ground to pay respects. I had so much I wanted to tell them. But in the end, I said nothing. Because my past 3 years had been filled with Michael Smith. They wouldn't want to hear that. All I said was, "Wait for me. I'll come join you soon." In the following days, I used the rest of my silver to bribe a palace official who handled the recruitment of dancers. I requested to see the man my eldest sister had once loved, the Emperor of South Tang, Tyler Moore. And then I killed him. Or at least I tried. What I didn't expect was that Michael Smith was already waiting inside the South Tang Palace. I saw Michael Smith on my second day inside the palace. By then, North Liang had swept through the south like a storm. Blood flooding the streets, corpses rotting across the land. Yet Tyler Moore still feasted and drank, laughing through his court. He had even ordered new dancers from outside the palace. I had sharpened my hairpin into a deadly point. I had practiced hundreds, thousands of times how to pierce a man's throat. What I didn't know was that Tyler Moore, in his desperation, had already surrendered to North Liang and welcomed Michael Smith into the palace. During the performance, Tyler Moore was chasing a dancer around the hall. My eyes were locked on him. I didn't see Michael Smith at all. I played coy and flirted with Tyler Moore. Maybe I had changed so much over the years that he didn't recognize me, his own wife's younger sister. He pulled me into his arms and praised me. So soft, so fragrant. A treasure of the mortal world. I laughed sweetly, drew the hairpin from my hair, and stabbed at his throat with all my strength. But someone grabbed my arm. I was thrown to the ground, pinned hard. Just a little more, just one more breath. And I would have killed him. But I failed. I screamed. I thrashed. I crawled toward Tyler Moore, desperate to rip out a piece of his flesh, even with my teeth. And then I saw him. Michael Smith, seated high on the northern throne. His gaze cold and stormy, barely suppressed violence behind his eyes. The man I thought I would never see again suddenly appeared before me. He was right there. So tall, so real. How had I not seen him before? Someone leapt out in high spirits. It was Daniel Lee, who should have been dead. "Your Majesty," she came, just as I said. "I didn't lie to you," he said excitedly. "She is Mike Anderson's fiancée. They were childhood sweethearts. She was with you because..." Daniel's voice was abruptly cut off. Michael Smith ran a sword clean through his heart. Tyler Moore stumbled backward in terror. The dancers screamed and scattered. Michael Smith walked toward me, bloodied sword in hand. He lifted my chin with its tip. "So your name isn't Luna Gray." The smell of blood made me nauseous, but I forced myself to hold it back. "That's right. My name isn't Luna Gray. I am Sophie Lewis, of the Lewis family." "Sophie Lewis," he murmured, lowering his head until his lips brushed my ear. "So when you called me Mike in bed, you meant Mike Anderson?" I met his eyes. "Yes, kill me." I had failed to assassinate Tyler Moore. Death by 1,000 cuts would be my fate, if not worse. Michael Smith killed swiftly and cleanly. I hoped he'd show me that mercy. But Daniel Lee's blood was far too pungent. Before the sword could fall, I vomited violently. Somewhere in my agony, I heard him say coldly, "Death is too easy for you. Go back where you came from." They sent me to the North Liang military camp outside Jinling. And yes, Michael Smith was right. That was where I had come from. Compared to 3 years ago, when the soldiers of North Liang had fought over me like rabid animals, this time they were eerily quiet. They stared from a distance, but no one dared touch me. I was thrown into a straw-covered hut, crammed with other girls from South Tang. But only I was shackled, gagged, and bound. Not even allowed the chance to die. Night fell. The girls were dragged out one by one. Screams, beatings, sobs echoed from all directions. At dawn, they were returned bruised and broken. "Who are you? Why don't they make you serve them?" a girl asked. I didn't know. Maybe my frail, dying state repulsed them. Maybe they still feared Michael Smith. But once they realized he had truly abandoned me here to rot, they'd descend like wolves, just like they had with my eldest sister. Even as a corpse, because she had once been the emperor's woman, She wasn't spared. And sure enough, after a drunken revelry in the camp, someone came in. By then, all the other girls had been taken away. I was already delirious from starvation. He came at night, reeking of wine. In the pitch black, he melted into the shadows. I couldn't see his face. I thought I had already sunk so low. What was one more bite from a dog? But when he tore at my clothes, when his cold lips touched my neck, I felt fear. I couldn't face Mike like this. But how could I make him stop? "I'm pregnant," I whispered, trembling. "It's His Majesty's child. If you hurt me, you'll hurt the baby." The gag distorted my words, but I tried. I didn't know if it would work. North Liang never valued the children of the low-born, even royal bastards. Just like Michael Smith, his mother had been a palace maid. He was never treated like a real prince. He and his mother had scraped by in the palace. At 10, he was sent to the army fighting alongside common soldiers. He was never favored. He was even bullied for being unwanted. His mother once told me. He shed blood for North Liang, just for his father to look at him once. The man on top of me didn't stop. His hand slid to my belly, as if to confirm whether I was truly pregnant. He wore cowhide gloves, rough and cold, like a snake. But I was too thin. And perhaps I wasn't even truly pregnant. My belly was flat. He thought I was lying. I felt like he would snap my neck in rage. I began to cry. That despair of being dragged into darkness with no escape. My tears ran down my cheeks and onto his face. He finally stopped. His breath still hovered by my neck, but he did nothing more. I didn't dare move. I prayed, shaking, that he would just leave. Eventually he did. Only when his footsteps faded did I dare breathe. Soft, shallow gasps. The pain in my belly throbbed. Maybe from the stress. Maybe from something worse. In the second half of the night, I started to burn with fever. Sometimes I saw father and mother. Sometimes Mike. They stood across a river, smiling at me, warm, gentle. I cried and ran toward them. Just a little closer. And I could touch them. But someone gripped my hand from behind. He held tight. No matter how I struggled, I couldn't break free. In the end, I was dragged back into this world of pain. I kept starving myself, but they force-fed me. Michael Smith never sent anyone for me. Maybe that man never told him. Or maybe Michael Smith knew and didn't care. Still, the man sometimes came again. He'd stand in the shadows, never approaching. Just watching. I pretended to sleep. I didn't open my eyes until he left. I lived in a daze. The camp physician said I was indeed pregnant over 3 months along. Counting the days, it was after that night behind the beaded curtain. I thought that was my final glimpse of North Liang's moon. But it was only the beginning. I began hearing news. North Liang had moved its capital to Jinling. South Tong was no more. Tyler Moore had been granted the title Duke of Grace. Michael Smith gifted him the Lewis estate as his new manor. Michael Smith knew how to kill a person's soul. He knew exactly what I hated most, and used it to torture me. At 4 months pregnant, I was pulled from the military camp. Michael Smith's mother had issued an imperial decree. I was granted the title of imperial consort, the highest-ranked consort beneath the empress. The first Han consort in North Liang's history. The court announced to the world that I was a daughter of the Louis family, promising me endless riches and honor. But I knew it was all politics. Winning a nation's heart was harder than conquering one. And this sealed it. The Anderson and Lewis families had betrayed South Tong. Otherwise, how could a fragile tribute girl escape South Tang and become the favored consort of North Liang's emperor? The day the decree was read, I lost control. I bolted for the exit. Palace maids clung to me, pulling me back. I clawed at the doorframe. My fingernails cracked and bled, but I felt nothing. I knelt, facing the palace where Michael Smith lived, and banged my head against the floor. "Your Majesty, please don't do this to me. I beg you, I was wrong. I was wrong. I'll do anything you ask. Just don't do this. Please, please," I begged again and again. No one answered me. The eunuch who had come to announce the decree shoved the scroll into my hands.
Imperial Consort Louis, give thanks, he said.
I knelt on the cold ground, shaking. I regretted it. I shouldn't have left Michael Smith. I should have stayed by his side. Obeyed him. Crawled when he asked. If I had, would things have turned out differently? Later the Empress Dowager came. Imperial Consort Louis, take good care of yourself and deliver the child safely, she said kindly. This is His Majesty's first child. Your blessings have only just begun. I looked at the woman who had finally risen in power, and thought, she must have forgotten that this child was brought on by the medicine she gave me. A child that likely wouldn't survive. The maids assigned to me were all girls from South Tang. They watched me closely, terrified. They told me if anything happened to me, their 9 generations of kin would be punished. I looked at their frightened, youthful faces, as if seeing my former self. I could not give birth, nor could I die. The days passed. Sun rose, moon set. I felt a constant weariness. I used to hate so deeply, but now I didn't know where that hatred had gone. Even father, mother, sister, and Mike no longer came to my dreams. Sometimes I thought I heard someone calling me, but when I turned around, it was only the wind passing under the eaves. Instead, I often dreamed of the man in the dark. He would stand beside me, his hand brushing my face. I'd shrink away from him, beg him not to come closer. When I woke from those dreams, there was no one at my bedside. Only tears of terror soaking my cheeks. I couldn't leave Peace Palace, and Michael Smith never came. Linda Green did visit once, but she only stood outside, silently watching me. I wish she would return to the sharp-tongued woman she used to be, instead of this distant, unreadable figure. She was now Empress. She lived in Huayang Palace, once my sister's residence. I heard her dragon phoenix twins remained in the north. She hadn't brought them with her. Your Majesty, come in and sit, I said, supporting my belly. But she only stepped backward. Again and again, until she vanished behind the palace gates. I wondered had pregnancy ruined my looks and scared her away. But in the mirror, I was round and radiant, my face soft as peach blossoms. Even more beautiful than before. Why was she afraid? On New Year's Eve, I was granted a single day of freedom. Michael Smith would be hosting a grand feast for the court, then greeting the commoners from Changshan Tower. I was to attend with him. A performance. To show the people of South Tang how generous and kind he was to me. To paint a picture of joy and peace under his rule. At dawn, the maids began dressing me. My head was adorned with pearls and jade. My robes were woven of gold and silver thread. They didn't bother hiding my belly. In fact, they used a jade belt to outline its shape. The people of South Tang would see. The daughter of their former grand tutor now carried the air of North Liang. The child was 6 months old. Far more stubborn than I expected. Still clinging to life inside me. Nearly 4 months had passed since I last saw Michael Smith. I felt a chill at the thought of facing him again. My shattered nails had long grown back. Yet they still ached, faintly. Escorted by attendants, I sat at his right. Linda Green sat at his left. He turned to her as they whispered, like a loving young emperor and empress. The former ministers of South Tang looked at me with mixed expressions. Mockery, contempt, hatred, resentment. Even Tyler Moore was there, his eyes cold and sharp, as if I had been the one to orchestrate their downfall. I looked back at them, wanting to laugh. But lately, even laughing felt like too much trouble. Tribute girls from various kingdoms danced gracefully through the hall. Charming, radiant, drawing every eye. Michael Smith watched with interest. He called one forward to attend to him. "Where are you from?" he asked the girl. "You dance beautifully." The girl lit up with delight. "Your Majesty, I'm from Shanlu." Michael Smith nodded. "Shanlu, that's far." "Yes, Your Majesty. We came by sea, it took over 10 days. If we traveled by carriage, it would have taken a month or more." 10 days, Michael Smith murmured. Then his gaze swept toward me. I knew, He had figured out how I had returned to South Tong. After the banquet, we ascended Chengshan Tower. From here, the entire city of Jiniling could be seen. The streets below bustled with life, opera performances, acrobatics, crowds cheering. No one cared whether the world belonged to the Moore family or the Smiths. Years ago, my sister and Tyler Moore had stood here to greet the people. Mike and I would sneak off unnoticed to the streets below. We watched the shows, ate sweets. Father would scold me for lacking a noblewoman's dignity. But my sister always defended me. Louis' family only needs one proper lady, she would say. As for Sophie, she just needs to be happy. But now, on this tower, no sister, no Mike. I looked toward Tyler Moore. Another new beauty stood by his side. He whispered something that made her laugh like a blooming flower. This was the man my sister had loved with all her heart. When he lived in our family estate, did he ever have nightmares? I couldn't help but drift toward him. But just as I took a step, a strong hand gripped my arm. I turned. It was Michael Smith. Just moments ago, he'd been chatting with ministers. How had he noticed me? His hand remained hidden in his wide sleeve, still holding mine, as he continued laughing and speaking with the others. No one noticed what he was doing. Just like those days in the military camp of North Liang. While the deputy general reported outside the tent, he held me in his arms inside. And I whispered Mike again and again by his ear. So close, so entangled. He didn't want me to make trouble now. Didn't want me trying to stab Tyler Moore again. This was his empire now. Still fragile. No room for error. I stood quietly beside him, obedient as before. When fireworks burst across the dark sky, everyone looked up. Brilliant colors lit half the heavens. And in the instant those lights faded, assassins struck, charging from all directions. People screamed and scattered. But Michael Smith did not move. My hand was still in his. And in his grip, I felt no panic. No tension. That's when I realized he had been prepared for this all along. As expected, countless North Liang soldiers emerged like ghosts. Before the assassins could even reach us, they were cut down in a flurry of blades. One of them mortally wounded spat blood at me. To flatter your enemy? What face will you have when you meet the young General Anderson in the afterlife? He was one of Mike's soldiers. He turned and cursed Michael Smith. The general admired you, saw you as a kindred soul, and you led him to his death. Even if you rule the world, you're nothing but a treacherous cur. Michael Smith looked down at him from above. Supreme strategy wins without fighting. Next is breaking alliances. Next is fighting battles. Last is attacking cities. What betrayal! The one who killed him, Michael said flatly, was never me. It was his own naivety. The assassin's head rolled to the ground. Blood sprayed across both my robes and Michael Smith's. And from within me, blood began to run down my legs. Before I collapsed, I caught one last glimpse of Michael Smith's panic. The hand hidden within his sleeve gripped my waist, harder than ever before. His lips moved. I couldn't hear what he said, but I guessed it. Luna. And at last I saw Mike again. He had climbed over the wall to see me. We were hiding in the attic loft where he gave me a sharp, beautiful Wolf tooth. Here, he said, tying it gently around my neck. It wards off evil. What is it? Where did it come from? I asked. Mike grinned with pride. A Wolf fang. I met a North Liang boy at the border who looked a lot like me. We fought. I tore this from him. But what? Mike scratched his head, a little sheepish. Well, the medicine pouch you gave me, he stole it. I punched him lightly. You let another guy take what I gave you? You'd better get it back next time. He shook his head. I can't. He got sick and used up all the herbs. That wasn't for eating. It was for smelling. It's fine. He got better. Your herbs worked. I frowned. Does that mean I saved an enemy? Mike patted my head. Enemies are on the battlefield. Don't worry. As long as I'm here, North Liang won't take Dingju. I fingered the fang. It had the word Michael carved into it. I realized that must have been the boy's name. Mike had told me more about that boy Michael.
He said Michael could kill a Volf king with his bare hands.
That this fang belonged to that Volf.
He said Michael couldn't drink.
Just 2 sips of spring, our South Tang wine, made him dizzy. He even said he told Michael about me. About how lively, beautiful, and clever I was. The cutest girl in South Tang. A beauty who could dazzle all of North Liang. And finally, he said, Sophie, once I and my father and brothers reclaim the 13 provinces, we'll get married. I pouted. That'll take forever. If you don't want to marry me, just say it.
He looked at me smiling, then his smile faded.
He kissed me lightly. Sophie, I dream of marrying you. My blushing face outshone the blooming crabapple blossoms of spring. None of us knew then that Michael, the boy from the border, was Michael Smith. Nor did we know that the fates of the 3 of us had already been woven tightly together. When Michael Smith appeared in the Northling Army a year later, I knew immediately he was that boy. Even if he hadn't chosen me, I would have found a way to stay near him. Not just because he looked like Mike, but because I knew following him was the only way I'd survive long enough to escape. A boy who could kill a Volf king with his bare hands could never be ordinary. I knelt obediently at his feet and buried that Volf fang deep in North Liang soil forever. I awoke to falling snow. The palace maid said I'd been unconscious for 3 or 4 days. My hand went to my belly. The child was gone. The child, brought into being by forced medicine, died just before the new year. Don't be sad, your ladyship, the maid comforted me. You're still young. You'll have more children with His Majesty. I sat in silence, staring at the snow outside, until Michael Smith entered. The others retreated, leaving just the 2 of us.
He brought medicine to my lips.
I didn't want it. Still, he coaxed. If you take 1 sip, someone outside gets to live. I looked at him. Everyone dies eventually. He put the cup down and rose. I thought he would leave. But instead, he pulled me up and locked me in his arms. He pinched my jaw and forced the medicine down. I choked, coughing hard. Before leaving, his fingers brushed my lips. Sophie Lewis, he said coldly. Whether you live or dead, that's up to me. What you owe me, you haven't paid in full. I stared at him. What do I owe you? I didn't believe I owed him anything. I was his Linda Green. He was my Mike. We simply used each other. But he only looked at me, silent. After that, the palace maids watched me more closely. The royal physician remained on standby. And when medicine time came, Michael Smith would appear and use the same means to make me drink it. The Empress Dowager came to see me too. Bestowed me rare herbs. She repeated her usual line, take care of your health. You'll have more children. Your blessings are still ahead. Linda Green came as well. She said she'd be returning to the northern capital for a while. And she said, Imperial Consort Louis, sometimes it's best not to live too clearly. I didn't know whether she spoke with genuine sympathy or cold detachment. But she left, gone to see the children she raised in the north. Maybe because I was still young, my body gradually recovered. But I was always tired, sleeping through most of each day, dreamless. And when I awoke, I was still exhausted. When the crabapples bloomed, the physician said I had fully recovered, that I could attend to His Majesty again. The palace maids dressed me carefully, joyful for my recovery. That night Michael Smith came. But he didn't summon me to bed immediately.
He sat beneath the lamp, reading the Book of Han.
I heard that South Jia had recently submitted to him too, after he slaughtered an entire city. A man with blood on his hands, now reading the works of gentle scholars. The candlelight flickered. The silence flowed like water. There was no muzzle on me now, no rope binding my hands. The palace gates stood wide open, yet somehow I could no longer summon the strength to run. The pages of the book turned slowly, one after another. I was drowsy again, though I had slept for hours that afternoon. Leaning against the side of the bed, I drifted into a hazy sleep. I don't know how long I slept before I felt it. Cool lips pressed against my neck, teeth nipping at my pulse like a puppy. Just like that Northling soldier who came in the night. Though gentler this time, I still trembled in fear. A hand slid around my waist bare, not gloved in leather, but just as cold as it had been that night. Panic seized me. I tried to push away. Then I saw it, the familiar bed curtains. The joyful happiness dolls arranged by the maids at the head of the bed. This was Peace Hall, not the military camp. That man couldn't have come here. That man was Michael Smith. He had spared me when I cried. Had come to see me when he thought I was asleep. Had known I wanted to kill Tyler Moore even while laughing with ministers. He had always been watching me. Always. Why had he always been watching me? Awake?
His voice brushed against my ear,
Followed by a sharp bite to my shoulder, right where a hideous scar lay. From the time he was ambushed, and I, without hesitation, took the blade for him. Back then he had asked, "Why did you shield me?" Bleeding and crying, I replied, "I didn't want you to die." And I hadn't been lying. In those days he looked so much like Mike. When he smiled, his expressive brows and eyes brought Mike vividly to life. I couldn't save Mike. So, instinctively, I had saved him. Now I reached out to cover that ugly scar. My other hand wrapped around his neck as I replied softly, I'm awake." And I was truly awake. I heard the echoes beneath the eaves, a rush of people, like the vibrant days of my youth. The canopy embroidered with children fluttered like butterflies in the wind. All night long, spring rain fell, and countless delicate crabapple blossoms were knocked to the ground. When I woke, Michael Smith had already gone to morning court. The Empress Dowager summoned me for tea. She said that spring in the south was beautiful, and I should get out more. Near sunset, she told me to dine with Michael Smith. I didn't refuse. I waited for him in his chambers. Books lay scattered on the desk. I picked one up, flipping it absent-mindedly, and froze. It was my father's collected affairs of Southern governance. Inside, he had written how the people might live in peace, how South Tang could navigate tensions with North Liang and other states, and proposed remedies to avoid war. He had once offered this very book to Tyler Moore. Moore had praised it, only to toss it into the palace latrines the next day. My sister had been furious. But Tyler Moore had been too busy flirting with palace maids to care. Yet now this copy was worn at the edges. Michael Smith had read it, perhaps many times. One passage had been underlined in red cinnabar. Those in power must not cling to ideals for appearance's sake. The wise have said, supreme strategy is to defeat with cunning. Second is to sever alliances. Third is to win by arms. Worst is to attack cities. To shatter the enemy's mind with a single word is to win without lifting a finger. My hands trembled as I read. Michael Smith had spoken those very words on Chengshan Tower. He had said it wasn't him who killed Mike. It was Mike's own naivety. He had destroyed the Anderson and Louis clans without lifting a blade. 3 days of slaughter had forced South Tang and South Zhao to lay down their arms and surrender. I gently set the book back. The arrow my father shot in his grand ambition, years later had struck straight through his own heart, and dragged his family down with him. We were all pawns on the board of fate, moving along the lines drawn by destiny. Only Michael Smith had stepped off the board, and become the one moving the pieces. When he returned, I was teasing the golden carp in the pond. They were plump and lively, charming like living jewels. He looked surprised for a moment. "You've been here watching the fish?" I nodded. All along." He exhaled softly as though relieved. "Come inside. The wind is cold." I followed behind him. Into the palace dreamt of by 10,000 women. I no longer had to kneel. No longer had to shatter my nails on the doorframe, begging for mercy. I too was now one of the ones holding the pieces. Michael Smith and I reconciled. The maids in Peace Hall finally sighed with relief. But in court, the officials buzzed. They thought they should send more beauties into the palace. afraid this seductive witch might monopolize the emperor. Many noble families sent their daughters. Michael Smith didn't refuse them. He housed them in splendid palaces, and then came every night to Peace Hall. These noble girls often sneered at me. A respectable daughter of the Wangs and Z's, raised like that? You know she used to serve men, right? To survive the North Liang camps, she must have had some skills. I didn't mind. I'd heard worse. And none of it threatened what I had now. Michael Smith, on the other hand, had their tongues torn out. He even gave the girls from South Tong the choice: stay in the palace or return home. The slander ceased immediately. People avoided me in the halls. Now and then those who could still speak would mutter, "Wait till the Empress returns. See how long she keeps her arrogance." But Linda Green didn't return. Instead, word came from the northern capital. She had taken the title of Empress Dowager. Her children carried the legitimate imperial blood of North Liang. Her family, the Greens, had never approved of Michael Smith. They crowned a young emperor in the north, hoping to wrest the throne from his hands. Linda once told me, "Don't live too clearly." And now I wondered, was she being clear? Or still deluding herself? Michael Smith marched north with 100,000 soldiers, leaving the Empress Dowager and me behind. Court ministers begged him not to go in person, but he went anyway. The night before he left, he climbed Kengshan Tower again, gazing toward the north for a long time. "What do you see, Your Majesty?" I asked. He answered, "So this is how it feels." He had always been the attacker. Now, he was the defender. That night, he nearly bit through my throat again. He whispered a threat. "If I return and you're gone, I'll flay you alive." After he left, the Empress Dowager asked, "Do you think His Majesty is being impulsive?" I shook my head. "Those who move the pieces do not act on impulse." She cupped my cheek and said, "Sophie, I truly do like you." Then, she began to tell me her story. She told me that she was once a little princess of her tribe. Later, North Liang destroyed her clan, and the princess became a slave. She said when Michael Smith was born, he was as pitiful as a little kitten. Though he had many siblings, none played with him. Then Linda Green appeared, warm and kind like sunlight, treating both her and her son well. But who would have thought? Linda Green was like that with everyone, casting wide nets, gathering many fish. The day before her wedding, she still gave Michael hope. Then the next morning, she became his sister-in-law. So he returned to the borderlands, where he crossed fists with a young general from South Tong. From strangers, they became friends, drinking together, chatting under the stars, listening to tales about the lovely girls of South Tang. He carried a medicine pouch. When he was gravely injured, it was the herbs in that pouch that saved his life. And the scent of it calmed him, helped him sleep. He said he envied that South Tong youth, envious of the fatherly love, the brotherly bonds, and of the girl the boy described so fondly. Later, he really did meet a beautiful girl from South Tong. She looked like Linda Green, and carried the same scent as the medicine that once saved him. So, he kept her to himself. She was lovely, and so obedient. For the first time, he had both sunlight and medicine in his life. But later, he realized she saw him as medicine too. And once she was healed, she threw him away. At that part of the story, the Empress Dowager turned and smiled at me. Mike was bullied his whole life, and he's always fought back. Except for one thing. You leaving him, that he had no way to fight. He chased down the South Tang envoy's caravan, slaughtered them all, and still didn't find you. He thought you got separated from the group. But who could have guessed? You didn't follow the expected path. You detoured to Shanlu. I smiled. Your Majesty jests? I simply borrowed the Empress's good fortune. She asked, and now, do you still mistake His Majesty for that young General Anderson? I replied, no, not anymore. See? She said. Given time, no matter how similar two people look, you'll still tell them apart. Yes. I could tell them apart now. But what did it change? In the end, she told me, Sophie, the past is precious. But cherish the one before you. It might be a whole new world. On the way back, I looked up at the burning sun. Compared to medicine, I still preferred the sunlight. Medicine is too bitter. It may heal, but it could never compare to the sun's warmth. I returned to the Louis family estate, with people I had trained. When Michael Smith was here, he wouldn't let me touch Tyler Moore. But now he was gone, and distant water couldn't extinguish a nearby fire. The living me had finally waited long enough. I stood at the gates for a long time before entering. What had once been a grand household now looked like a ghost residence. Talismans covered every wall, especially in the embroidered tower where my sister once lived. Red thread sealed every window, every door. So you're afraid too? I smiled at Tyler Moore.
He trembled, his voice shaky.
His Majesty promised not to kill me. If you harm me, you'll die too. I hummed an acknowledgement, pulled the hairpin from my head, twirled it in my fingers. Only then did real fear flicker in his eyes.
He must have remembered the night I tried to assassinate him.
A furious spirit in a blood-red veil. If I die, he declared righteously, the realm will descend into chaos. You must think of the people. I looked at him and replied, all people die. Kings die, commoners die. Early or late, it's all the same. Then I added, when you see the souls of the Anderson and Lewis families in the afterlife, bow, apologize for your pathetic pride. In Southtown, the crown passed to the rightful heir. But Tyler Moore was a bastard. Ambitious. He wooed my sister, feigning deep affection to win our support. When the former crown prince was deposed, he rose through Louis' family influence to claim the throne. But once crowned, paranoia took over. He thought everyone saw through him. He feared his power slipping away. So he killed. He killed 36,000 of us. From the white-haired to the newborn. Only then could he sleep soundly. At one time, I'd considered luring North Liang's army to destroy this cannibalistic South Tang. But in the end, I was defeated by the sun in the sky. This was the place Mike swore to protect. I couldn't taint it, though fate had its own cruel path. I drove the hairpin into Tyler Moore's throat. Slowly, inch by inch. He gurgled and struggled, eyes wide in terror as he choked on his own blood. It was warm and sticky, disgusting. But I kept pressing until only the tip of the pin was visible. The Empress Dowager arrived at last. She saw his corpse and sighed. Foolish. I bowed to her, then walked out of the Lewis family estate. I climbed the city walls of Jinling. Looking down, I saw Mike again. Not hanging from the wall this time. No, he was astride a tall horse, smiling. Sophie, he called. I've come to take you home. I wanted to jump down, but the maids held me back. I was taken back to the palace, locked inside Peace Hall under the Empress Dowager's decree. I had killed Tyler Moore, and she had to answer to the old court. I didn't care anymore. I only wanted to sleep. The maids said Michael Smith had defeated the Green family and reclaimed the northern capital. Linda Green committed suicide. He spared her children. But I saw Linda Green again. She stood in the corridor of Liang Hall. When she saw me, she said, I had the heart, but not the freedom. My husband, he was a man of honor. Just too blunt. Too honest. Sophie, maybe just go back to being Luna. When I woke, I wasn't sure it had been a dream. It felt like something she really had said before. I slept longer and longer. So long that the maids had to check my breath. Finally, the palace gates opened. Michael Smith had returned. He smelled of dust. Attendants bustled around him. In my half-conscious haze, someone said, She's run out of strength. The flame's gone out. Michael Smith refused to believe it. She was fine when I left. Yes. I was fine. I made sure he was satisfied, so he would leave quickly. After that, I couldn't hear clearly anymore. He tried to feed me medicine again. So bitter, I couldn't swallow it. I wanted to say, stop forcing it. Or I really will stab you with a hairpin. You, indirect killer of my family of Mike. If only I could beat you. I would never let you do as you pleased. But I had no strength left. Could only let him do as he wished. Later, when the medicine wouldn't go down,
He put it in his own mouth, fed it to me with a kiss.
I laughed at him in my heart. What was this? Too many Southtown love operas. Did he think this would change anything? Soon he realized it didn't work either. So he stopped feeding me medicine. And just kissed me. Over and over. My face was wet. At first, I thought it was his saliva. Then I realized it was his tears. Even a man who kills wolves can cry. I don't know how long it was before everything finally went quiet. I heard a soft rustling sound and opened my eyes. Mike was climbing over the wall. He wore that moon-white brocade robe, the same one he wore the night he gave me the Wolfgang. When he smiled, his teeth were white and bright. Sophie, I don't want the Wolfgang. Don't give it to me. I hurriedly interrupted him, flustered. He froze, confused. What Wolfgang? I came to take you out to play. Relief flooded me. As long as it's not the Wolfgang. I jumped out of bed and followed him. As we passed a mirror, I saw myself. 15 or 16 again, pretty and radiant, the best girl in all of Southtown. I glanced back one last time at the girl in the mirror, then skipped happily after Mike over the wall. We flew through the sky. His horse waited on the walls of Jinling. We climbed on together, wind howling past our ears. Behind us, I heard the sound of funeral bells. 17 in total. A signal to the people, the Empress has passed. I panicked.
The Empress.
That's my big sister. How could something happen to her? But when I turned, I saw her sitting peacefully, playing the zither in a pavilion, alive and well. My father and mother were there too. I leapt from the horse and ran toward them. I missed them so much. But then a voice echoed through the air, calling out Luna again and again. That name, the name I used when I was someone else. Even I had forgotten it. Why was he still calling me that? His voice sounded so heartbroken. I couldn't help turning back. I saw a boy riding a Wolf, braided hair by his temples, high ponytail, a scar on his chin. He reached a hand out toward me, eyes cautious. Luna, let's go home. I thought for a moment, then told him. Luna was the daughter of the family who bought me. My name is Sophie Louise. But he stubbornly called me Luna. I told him, don't call me that anymore. The days I lived as Luna, they were too painful. The bitter medicine, the tiny yard I was locked in, being forced into intimacy in front of so many people. It was also bitter. But I was a girl from Southtown. A girl who loved sweet things. I covered my ears and ran into my parents' arms. They embraced me gently. Their arms were so warm. I was still that happy girl, Sophie, their precious daughter. And like that, I would forever remain the girl who was loved by her parents. Michael Smith, extra chapter. When Michael Smith rushed back, Luna was sleeping. Though the remaining Southtown officials had submitted hundreds of petitions asking she be executed by 1,000 cuts, she slept peacefully as if nothing was wrong. He was angry, but not too angry. She had been with him since she was 16. He had just turned 19. 5 years. Almost every day together, cheek to cheek, never far apart. He was used to her obedience. She had only ever defied him twice. And though both times had enraged him nearly beyond control, seeing her now, he found he didn't want to blame her. Because this version of her was real, was alive. And he loved her secretly. He sat beside her. But no matter what, she wouldn't wake. A palace maid stammered, trembling. She's been like this, sleeping longer and longer. Even more than after her miscarriage. She only wakes an hour or two each day. The imperial physician said. She had kept herself alive for years on sheer will alone. Now, with her revenge complete and her heart unburdened, that will was gone. Her light was going out. She had only a few days left. He refused to believe it. She was still fine when I left. She called me Michael Smith again and again. It hadn't even been 3 or 4 months. How could she be fading so fast? In fury, he demanded the best medicine. She couldn't swallow, so he tried to force it. When that didn't work, he held it in his mouth and tried to feed her that way. Just like she had once done for him. When he was gravely ill in the army. He remembered her crying as she fed him. Don't die. If you die, whose thigh am I supposed to cling to? And the moment he opened his eyes, she stopped crying. Pretended nothing happened. He liked her when she cried. Soft and sweet like sugar. So obedient no matter what he did. But now, even feeding her like that didn't work. So he ordered everyone out, just the two of them. He told her Linda Green had taken her own life. He hadn't planned to kill her. She had been a light in his childhood. Giving him a bun when he was starving, getting a doctor for his mother. He owed her a great debt. But Linda Green still chose to die. She said she thought she loved power, but realized too late that she had fallen for his older brother. The upright, kind man who could never say the right words. But there was no going back. Michael said he mourned her. But it was no longer out of love. Lately he had been restless. Haunted by dreams of Sophie leaving with Mike Anderson. So he rushed back. And now that dream had become real.
He held her tightly in his arms, calling her softly, Luna.
Even though he knew her name was Sophie Lewis, he still preferred Luna. Because Luna was the version of her that had belonged entirely to him.
He told her back in the North Liang army camp.
He'd been stupid. He should have realized she was the girl Mike Anderson had spoken of. So beautiful. She brought color to the mud and blood of the barracks. She had worn rags. But once clean, she carried the scent of healing herbs. He thought all South Tong girls smelled that way. He hadn't touched any others. So he never knew the scent was hers alone. When she was beside him, he could finally sleep in peace. Though sometimes she'd hover over him with a hairpin at his throat, but the moment he stirred, she'd freeze in fear. Later, he returned to the capital and became crown prince. He thought about leaving her behind after all. She was just a tribute girl. But the way she whispered Mike in his ear, it made him both hardened and soft. So he took her with him. If she was a substitute, so be it. Because even beyond her resemblance to Linda Green, she truly pleased him, sweet, soft, beautiful even when she cried. He thought they'd stay like that forever. In those dark years, she was the one who stood beside him through every twist and turn. No matter how far he went, he always remembered. There was someone waiting for him. Finally, someone had waited for him. But then she ran. He regretted what he did that night. He shouldn't have humiliated her. But she'd always been so obedient. So quiet. He thought nothing would happen. He chased down the South Tong envoy's caravan, but didn't find her. In a fury, he executed them one by one. When he got to a man named Daniel Lee, that man finally remembered. She was Mike Anderson's fiancée, his childhood sweetheart. They were about to marry. Only then did he realize he had always been a stand-in. A shadow of Mike Anderson. Those sweet, soft cries of Mike she used to make. They were never for him. She was never calling Michael Smith, but Mike Anderson. Was he angry? Of course he was. So angry he wanted to strangle her on the spot. He had spent his whole life proving himself. Proving that he, too, was a worthy son of North Liang. He bled, he suffered. All for the approval of his father, the emperor. And yet, she never once saw Michael Smith. For 3 whole years. She only saw another man through his eyes. But when he thought of the endless wilderness, he feared she might be devoured by wolves. Daniel Lee had said she learned the truth. That Anderson and Louis were innocent. She would definitely return for revenge. Michael believed it immediately. He launched a campaign south, pushing straight to Dingzhou. The people of Dingzhou were resilient. But unfortunately, the general in charge was useless. If it had been Mike Anderson defending,
He might not have taken the city at all. Thinking of Mike, Michael felt a strange kind of regret.
he even wished that boy had been born a citizen of North Liang. 3 or 4 years ago, Michael was gathering intelligence near Dingzhou. and stepped in when some thugs were bullying an old man. He got stabbed in retaliation. Bleeding, he kept running, and halfway there, met Mike Anderson. Mike spotted him for a North Liang soldier immediately. They fought. Mike tore off his Wolfang. He snatched Mike's medicine pouch. "You're wounded. Fighting more would be dishonorable." Mike stopped first. Michael didn't linger either. He fled into the alley. Blood poured from his side. Only the medicine pouch remained. He bit it open, not knowing what was inside. Half he swallowed. The other half he pressed to the wound. Somehow it worked. The bleeding stopped. That pouch was clearly sewn with care. Its soft herbal fragrance eased his pain. Eventually the pouch was lost. But the day he lost it, she was sent to the army camp. So he stopped looking for it. She was enough. That first fight led to several more meetings. Mike invited him for drink South Tang's spring wine. He grilled meat for Mike, his cooking no worse than a restaurant's. Those few days, they were the freest, happiest days of his life. But an enemy is always an enemy. Michael had grown up in a slaughterhouse. He knew the rules of survival. Not like Mike Anderson, so carefree, so bold. Only knew how to kill on the battlefield, but never understood the treachery of men. To rise too high is to invite suspicion. Anderson's family was too proud, too naive. All it took was a lie from 1,000 miles away, and their entire clan was wiped out. As he spoke, the woman in his arms stirred. Michael fell silent. Mike Anderson was her deepest wound. To mention him was to tear her soul. Her body was growing cold again. Just like that night, he'd gone to see her in the army camp. He had sworn never to see her again. She didn't care for him. She went to assassinate Tyler Moore. And he sat there obviously visible. But she didn't even notice. He thought maybe she was pretending, but no. She really didn't see him. Because he didn't matter. Did he want to destroy her? Of course. He wanted to break her down to the bone. Especially when he asked, "Am I just a stand-in for Mike Anderson?" And she answered without a moment's hesitation, yes. If she had just paused, even for a second, he wouldn't have been so furious. He threw her into the army camp, but secretly sent trusted men to escort her. Everyone knew she was his woman. No one dared touch her. He thought she'd beg again, just like before. But she only clawed and bit at Tyler Moore. He later returned to the camp drunk. Saw her again and wanted her. He was young. She had been with him long enough to ruin his taste for other women. Even marrying Linda Green had made him uncomfortable. He thought maybe if they were together again, it would give her a way out. After all, she had an official title. Serving him was her duty. But she cried out that she was pregnant, his child, and begged him not to hurt her. She didn't even recognize him. Thought he was someone else. He touched her stomach. It was flat. He thought she was lying. So he bit her hard, to punish her. Maybe she'd recognize him then. But no, she only cried. Her tears fell across his face. He knew then, he was nothing but a substitute. He could recognize her in an instant. But even in their most intimate moment, she couldn't recognize him. If she hadn't really been pregnant, he would never have spoken to her again. Never. But once it was confirmed, he made her imperial consort, a high-ranked consort. Gave her the tranquil peace palace. He and his mother had suffered. He wouldn't let her or their child suffer the same. He gave her the world. But she only wept, begging him to let her go. She feared it would confirm the guilt of Anderson and Lewis. He knew. But he didn't take back the decree. Tyler Moore was begging for peace. Michael couldn't kill him yet. Not with Southern Zhao, Southern Yu, and Shanlu watching. He and she still had a long journey ahead. One day he would give her what she wanted. She refused to see him. He waited until she was asleep to visit, but always left before she woke. New Year's Eve, he was happy and miserable. If he had known one of Mike's men would be there, he never would have brought her, though she still wanted to kill Tyler Moore. She didn't struggle when he held her back. She stayed quietly at his side. In front of all those people, he couldn't help but hide her hand in his sleeve. It was just holding hands, but that was enough for him. He used to want to devour her whole. Now, her hand was enough. That night he decided to stay with her, to talk things out. But the assassin's insult made her miscarry. It had been a formed little girl, still breathing when she slipped out, but too tiny, too weak. She died in his arms. The Empress Dowager told him not to grieve. They were both still young. There would be more children. But she refused to take medicine, gave him only cold stares. So he forced her to drink, threatened her. At first she struggled. Then she stopped. She just slept. Long, deep sleeps. Her body recovered, but her soul did not. He should have known then. She wasn't really better. She was still sick. A sickness no physician could cure. The night he summoned her again, she was indifferent. So he sat beneath the lamp, reading, waiting for her to prepare. Instead she fell asleep. He didn't even know how many times now. She'd fallen asleep while ignoring him. He didn't want to indulge her anymore. He buried himself in the curve of her neck. She always smelled good, her skin, her hair, her breath. She woke. Unexpectedly, this time, she responded. She even called him by name. Not Mike Anderson. That night felt like the old days, back in the army camp. A tangle of passion and longing. After that, their days were filled with love. Like fish in water, like birds in the forest. He had doubted her. But in the end, all those doubts were worn down by her gentle touch. Yet when he left to suppress the rebellion, she still killed Tyler Moore, in a way so brutal, it didn't even seem like her. All the tenderness she gave him had been a lie. She had never forgotten Mike Anderson. And she had never placed her hopes on him. He was still the one left in shambles. Mike Anderson left a scar on his jaw. But she left a wound straight through his heart. Maybe this was karma. Retribution for how he had treated her back then. A gust of wind pushed open the doors. The palace servants were long dismissed. He was about to get up and close them when she suddenly woke. Her eyes curved like crescent moons as she looked at the doorway and whispered, "Mike." He thought she was getting better. But then she said, "I don't want the Wolfang. Don't give it to me. Wolfang." He remembered Mike Anderson had ripped it from him. He thought Mike had thrown it away. But it turns out he gave it to her. So they had been together all along. She was speaking to the open door, but no one was there. She got up and began to dress herself. Her hair styled like a young maiden's, then stepped outside, delighted. He held her tightly. He knew this was her final spark before death. But he still wanted to keep her. The emperor's fury shook the palace. The imperial guards surrounded Peace Hall, as if they could drive away the spirits trying to take her. It seemed to work. She calmed down and let him carry her back to bed. But her breath grew shallower, her body colder.
He could only call her name over and over, Luna.
That last night in North Liang, she said she was looking at the moon, but didn't know he had been watching her. She was his moon. But he had grown from the mud. Even he despised his filth. He never believed he was worthy of having a moon. By the time he tried to hold on to her, it was already too late. She opened her eyes one last time, looked at him, and murmured something. He couldn't hear it, so he brought his ear to her lips. And finally heard, "I don't like bitter things. I like sweet." After that, no more breath. She left with a faint smile. As if someone on the other side had given her honey. Palace maid's perspective. The palace filled with many new beauties. But only one truly captured the emperor's heart. Her name was Emily, a tribute girl from southern Zhao. She knew how to make incense. Every time His Majesty visited her, he never wanted to leave. People whispered her incense could connect the realms, that it allowed one to see the dead. We all thought, the emperor must miss the late empress. The Empress Dowager hated Emily, said she had sinister motives. Tried several times to have her executed. But His Majesty protected her. Emily became arrogant with favor. rising step by step from a mere tribute girl to a titled beauty. But she wasn't satisfied. She wanted to be imperial consort. She said she didn't dare covet the title of empress. But she'd heard His Majesty once had an imperial consort more beloved than any queen. She didn't want rank, just love. We told her that imperial consort was the empress now, posthumously titled. She was His Majesty's reverse scale untouchable. But Emily didn't listen. She opened the sealed peace hall, claimed His Majesty would surely gift her that palace. That very night, she was skinned and dismembered. We warned her. The emperor is terrifying. But ever since her incense was gone, he's only gotten worse. He says his bones ache. He stabs himself to ease the pain.
He keeps saying he sees Luna.
We don't even know who Luna is. Even the Empress Dowager cries when she sees him, calling it a cursed fate. Eventually, the Empress Dowager issued a sacred decree to have the emperor bound. He kept shouting in pain. One moment, it was his bones. The next, his heart. They say the Smith bloodline descends from the gods. So every heir is unnaturally beautiful.
His Majesty, too.
He was beautiful like a spirit from the mountains. But without the incense, he became a monster. Eventually he regained clarity. He issued a decree to summon his elder brother's 2 children, declaring the girl as crown princess. The Empress Dowager was furious. How can a woman be emperor? He only said after a long silence, "You're right, I was foolish," and changed the heir to the boy. But he gave the girl the most glorious land in North Liang, the best of everything. She would live in luxury all her life. Still, we believed. He really wanted to pass the crown to the girl. He never had children of his own. Rumors say he once had a daughter, but she died in his arms. He must have missed that child deeply. So deeply he was willing to give the world to someone who looked like her. Not long after naming the heir, His Majesty fell ill again. This time, there was no madness. Only silence. The physician said his oil was spent, his flame gone. One windy night, we rushed to close the doors. But the emperor sat up by himself, dressed quietly, shoes and all. In his hand, he clutched a piece of candy. He stood at the door, looked into empty space, and whispered, "Luna, this time, let's eat sweet things." He stood there for a long, long time. When the palace matron finally stepped forward, she found the emperor had passed. He died that year at age 32. He had ascended the throne at 22, reigned for 10 years, expanded the empire, slaughtered countless, burned cities to ash, scared children into silence. But he also unified the kingdoms, improved irrigation, abolished slavery, allowed both boys and girls to read, cleared the names of South Tang's exiled ministers, and paid respects at their tombs. We can't say whether he was a good emperor or a wicked one. We only know this year we turned 20. And thanks to the laws he set, we'll receive generous pensions, return home, marry, and care for our parents.